They say karma's a slow burn, but sometimes it's a wildfire. And Morgan Penhaligon, was about to become intimately familiar with its scorching embrace. My world, once a fortress built on loyalty and long-standing relationships, crumbled in a mere 10-minute meeting. "We're restructuring to maximize shareholder value," announced Harvey Alfie, the new CEO of Regent Apparel, his voice as smooth and sterile as the custom suit he wore. "Your position is being eliminated, effective immediately." For 17 years, I had poured my lifeblood into the northern division of Regent Apparel, transforming it from a struggling outpost into their undisputed champion. No flashy presentations, no corporate jargon, just an unwavering commitment to trust, consistency, and honest graft. I personally managed our key accounts, understanding not just their business needs, but their personal concerns, their families, their little quirks. These weren't just clients. They were partnerships built on mutual respect, generating over £3.5 million in annual contracts. Harvey Alfie had been at Regent for precisely 9 weeks. A polished veneer from the London Business School, a perfectly coiffed haircut, and an ego that filled the room. Not once had he inquired about our client relationships, never pondered how we'd consistently achieved 20% year-over-year growth while other divisions languished. He never wondered why the Sterling Group and Windsor Properties, our 2 largest accounts, specifically requested my presence on quarterly calls. As security escorted me to my office to pack, I noticed Amelia from HR couldn't meet my gaze. She'd been with the company 20 years, longer than me. Philip, the CFO, walked past, then hesitated. "Morgan," he began, his voice a low rumble, but then he simply patted my shoulder, an awkward, almost apologetic gesture, and continued down the hall. I packed in silence. Family photos, the golfing trophy the Windsor Properties team had given me after a particularly competitive company retreat. The handwritten note from Georgina at the Sterling Group, thanking me for expediting their order when her boss was in a bind. 17 years, meticulously cultivated, now condensed into a single cardboard box. I nodded respectfully to security, walked to my car without drama or empty threats. In my rearview mirror, I watched the glass tower shrink, a monument to a past that no longer included me. For the first time in 17 years, I didn't feel the immense weight of 40 employees and millions in contracts on my shoulders. It should have felt liberating, a release. Instead, it felt profoundly, irrevocably wrong. I started at Regent when they were little more than a glorified workshop in Birmingham. Back then, we were just trying to secure corporate uniform contracts with regional banks and healthcare providers. The Northern Division was bleeding money when they brought me in. I had 11 employees and a stark mandate: fix it or close it down. Over those first 3 years, I personally drove to every potential client within a 100-mile radius. I listened intently to their frustrations with current suppliers, the late deliveries, the shoddy quality control, the inconsistent sizing. I systematically addressed every single one of those pain points. My team expanded to 20, then 35 people. We moved into a proper office space. I promoted Bethany from customer service to account management when I witnessed her remarkable ability to handle the most difficult clients. I hired Sam, fresh out of design school, when he presented mock-ups that ingeniously solved problems we hadn't even realized we had. My daughter, Millie, was 13 when I started at Regent. Now she's 30, a successful architect in Edinburgh. My wife, Harriet, was my unwavering support through every late night, every weekend emergency, every urgent flight to salvage a precarious account. "It's about building something that will last," I'd tell her, and she believed me. 3 CEOs had come and gone during my tenure, each one valuing the robust foundation we had meticulously laid. The company transitioned from a regional player to a formidable national competitor, with my division consistently leading the charge in growth and client retention. The merger last year changed everything. The Blackwood Group acquired us, installing their own board. Initially, I wasn't concerned. In business, the numbers speak for themselves, but the cracks began to show. Harvey Alfie arrived with his cadre of efficiency experts and their endless spreadsheets. They simply didn't grasp the intricate web of relationships that held everything together. In meetings, they droned on about client acquisition costs, but remained utterly silent on the invaluable asset of client relationships. 2 weeks before my termination, Harvey requested a comprehensive report on all major accounts. I compiled everything: contract values, renewal dates, growth opportunities. What I deliberately omitted, because you can't quantify it on a spreadsheet, was how I'd attended the funeral of the Sterling Group's procurement director's mother, how I personally inspected Windsor Properties' first major order at 2M to ensure every detail was perfect for their company-wide rollout. When Harvey's assistant scheduled our meeting for just 10 minutes, a cold dread settled in my stomach. I'd seen it happen to others. I just never thought it would happen to me. The morning after my dismissal, I sat in my home office, staring at my phone. No messages from my former work. Harriet brought me a mug of steaming coffee, squeezing my shoulder gently. "What are you thinking?" she asked, her voice soft. "They don't understand what they've done," I replied, the words tasting bitter. What surprised me most was the absence of anger. Instead, a strange, almost serene clarity settled over me, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years. I opened my personal laptop and scrolled through my contacts, not the company database, but my own meticulously kept records. Names, numbers, personal email addresses. 17 years of genuine connections. The first call came at 9:45 a.m. It was Georgina from the Sterling Group. "Morgan, we just received a mass email about organizational changes at Regent," she said, her voice laced with concern. "Please tell me you're not affected." I took a slow, deliberate breath. "I was let go yesterday." The silence on the other end was deafening, speaking volumes. "Who's taking over the accounts?" she finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. "They didn't say," I admitted. "I assume one of Harvey's new team members." Another pause. "We've got our contract renewal in 6 weeks, Morgan, and I need to be frank. The board only approved staying with Regent last time because of you. The pricing was higher than competitors, but you always delivered, always fixed problems before they became problems." I didn't respond immediately. In the background, I could hear the faint tapping of her pen against her desk, a habit she had when making difficult decisions. "I need to talk to my team," she said finally. "Can I call you back on this number?" "Of course." After hanging up, I walked downstairs and sat at our kitchen table. Harriet was preparing lunch. "Are you okay?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. I nodded. "I think I will be." My phone buzzed with a text from Sam, my design lead at Regent. "Harvey called emergency meeting. Asked about client contact info for your accounts. No one's giving him straight answers." "What's happening?" I set the phone down without replying. Later that afternoon, Elliot from Windsor Properties called, then Michael from Thames Bank, then Stephanie from Brighton Healthcare Systems. The conversations all followed the same familiar pattern: shock at my departure, concerns about the future, urgent questions about their contracts. I was honest with each of them. I didn't badmouth Regent or Harvey. I simply answered their questions. Yes, I had been terminated. No, I wasn't aware of the transition plan. Yes, I was considering my options going forward. By evening, I had 5 missed calls from Harvey Alfie. I didn't return them. That night, I opened my laptop and created a spreadsheet of my own, not of clients or contracts, but of possibilities. Companies that had tried to recruit me over the years, competitors who might value someone with my experience and connections, even the option of starting my own consulting firm. For 17 years, I'd built bridges for Regent Apparel. Now, I had to decide whether to burn them or build new ones for myself. I chose the latter. 3 days after my termination, Harvey's texts escalated to calls. I let them go to voicemail. On the 4th day, I finally picked up. "Morgan, we need to talk," he said, his voice tighter than in our last meeting. "Some concerns have come up with several key accounts." I'm sure your team can handle it, I replied, watching a robin land on the bird feeder outside my window. That's just it. The Sterling Group is threatening to pull their contract. They're saying they only worked with us because of you. That's their decision to make, I said calmly. Look, maybe we moved too quickly with these restructuring changes, he stammered, a hint of desperation creeping into his voice. The board is concerned about the potential revenue impact. We could discuss a consulting arrangement to help with the transition. For a fleeting moment, I considered it. A consulting gig would be easy money while I figured out my next move. But something felt off about his sudden change of heart. I appreciate the offer, Harvey, but I need some time. I'll think about it. That afternoon, I met Gerald Davies for coffee. He'd been Regent's CFO before the Blackwood Group merger and had also been unceremoniously pushed out. He still had friends at corporate. Harvey's in full panic mode, Gerald said, stirring his coffee. Apparently, the Sterling Group and Windsor Properties both sent formal letters indicating they won't renew their contracts. Did they say why? Loss of key relationship personnel. Leadership instability. Pretty much corporate speak for we only trusted Morgan. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of validation and concern for my former team. There's more, Gerald continued, lowering his voice. Harvey told the board you're sabotaging the company, calling clients and telling them to leave. I set my cup down with a clink. I haven't told anyone to do anything. I've taken their calls and answered honestly. That's not how Harvey's painting it. He's building a case that you violated your termination agreement. Might try to claw back your severance. On my drive home, Harvey called again. This time, I let it go to voicemail. When I listened later, his tone had shifted entirely. Morgan, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We value everything you've built here. The board has authorized me to offer you a senior VP position. Better title, better package than before. Call me back. We should discuss. That evening, Daniel Thompson called. He was CEO of Highland Outfitters, a smaller competitor who had tried to recruit me twice over the years. I heard what happened at Regent, he said, his voice genuinely empathetic. Their loss. My offer still stands, but I'd like to sweeten it. Senior VP, equity stake, and complete control over your client relationships. I told him I needed a few days to consider all my options. That night, I received an email from Regent's legal department claiming I was in violation of non-solicitation agreements. The language was threatening, implying litigation if I didn't cease interfering with company relationships. I forwarded it to a lawyer friend without comment. The next morning, I had my answer. My lawyer friend, Paul Henderson, called early. This legal threat is paper thin, Morgan, he said, his voice reassuring. They're trying to intimidate you, but I looked at your contract. You never signed a non-solicitation agreement. The standard non-compete only prevents you from joining a competitor for 6 months. It doesn't stop clients from following you. I remembered signing that contract 17 years ago in a different era of the company. The old CEO had been straightforward. This just prevents you from taking our training and immediately working for the competition. Nothing about client relationships. So I've done nothing wrong legally? Not a thing. In fact, if they pursue this, we could counter for wrongful termination. The abrupt nature, the lack of transition plan for a senior leader courts don't look favorably on. I thanked him and hung up, just as an email arrived from Bethany at Regent. Subject line, you should know this. She'd attached an internal presentation from 2 weeks before my termination. Harvey had mapped out a complete restructuring. The plan included eliminating my position regardless of performance, replacing experienced staff with cheaper recent graduates, and raising prices on long-term clients by 15% once contracts renewed. A chilling note on slide 12 read, relationship-dependent business model presents significant risk. Need to transition to system-dependent model to maximize margins. They hadn't fired me because I was failing. They'd fired me because I was succeeding in a way that didn't fit their spreadsheet vision. More disturbing was a list of team reduction targets. Sam, Bethany, and 3 others from my division marked for termination once I was gone. I printed the document and sat with it at my kitchen table. Harriet read over my shoulder. "They were planning to dismantle everything you built," she said quietly. "And blame any fallout on me," I added. My phone buzzed. Another text from Harvey. "Board meeting tomorrow. Need to discuss reconciliation ASAP. Please call." I set the phone down and looked at the presentation again. The last slide showed projected revenue after all changes, 22% higher margins, assuming all clients stayed despite price increases and service reductions. It was a house of cards, built on delusion. I called Daniel at Highland Outfitters. "I'm interested in your offer," I said, "with one condition." "Name it," he answered without hesitation. "I want to bring my core team. 5 people total." "Done," he said immediately. "When can you start?" 2 weeks, and I'll need official offer letters for all of us today." That evening, I called Sam, then Bethany, then the others. I explained everything. The termination, the restructuring plan, their names on the cut list. I told them about Highland Outfitters' offer. All 5 said yes immediately, their relief palpable. I slept better that night than I had since the termination. I didn't return Harvey's calls or emails. Instead, I scheduled meetings with our top clients, not to poach them, but to check in as a friend. I met Georgina from the Sterling Group for lunch near her office. "We're not renewing with Regent," she said, even before ordering. "The question is where we go next." "I can't solicit your business right now," I explained. "Legally, I need to be careful." She smiled. "I understand. But hypothetically, if you were working somewhere that offered similar services, we would be very interested in following you." By week's end, I'd had similar conversations with all 5 major clients. None had received calls from Harvey or anyone else at Regent attempting to salvage the relationships. Meanwhile, Highland Outfitters sent formal offer letters to my team. One by one, they submitted their resignations at Regent the following Monday. Harvey showed up at my house unannounced. I was in the garage, working on my old Land Rover, when he pulled into the driveway in his sleek Mercedes. "We need to talk, Morgan," he said, anxiety clear on his face. "This has gone too far. The board is breathing down my neck. Key team members resigning, clients threatening to leave." "Sounds challenging," I replied, wiping my hands on a rag. "Unfortunately, I've accepted a position elsewhere." His face flushed a deep crimson. "You're joining a competitor? That violates your non-compete." "Highland Outfitters isn't on the restricted list in my contract. Paul Henderson confirmed it yesterday." "You're talking to lawyers now, Morgan. Be reasonable. Whatever they're offering, we'll beat it." I closed the hood of my truck. "It's not about the money, Harvey. It never was." "Then what do you want? Name it." I looked at him directly for the first time. "I wanted respect for 17 years of building something valuable. I wanted a conversation, not a 10-minute dismissal. I wanted my team protected, not targeted for elimination to pad some spreadsheet." His expression changed as he realized I knew about the restructuring plan. "That was just a draft, a scenario planning exercise." "Goodbye, Harvey." I walked past him toward my house. "The board will fight this," he called after me. "We'll sue you, Highland Outfitters, everyone involved." I turned back one last time. "You can try, but before you do, ask yourself what will cost shareholders more, letting me walk away quietly, or a public legal battle explaining why all your major clients and top talent left simultaneously." He had no answer for that. A week later, I started at Highland Outfitters. 2 weeks after that, my non-compete period ended. Within a month, 4 of our 5 major clients from Regent had signed new contracts with Highland Outfitters, specifically requesting me as their account manager. I never called anyone else at Regent. I never spoke badly about the company in public. I didn't have to. 6 months after I joined Highland Outfitters, I was reviewing quarterly numbers in my new office when Daniel knocked on my door. "You might want to see this," he said, placing his tablet in front of me. It was a financial news article about Regent Apparel. The headline read, "CEO Harvey Alfie steps down amid financial shortfall." The article detailed how Regent had missed quarterly projections by 18%. The Northern Division, my former territory, had seen nearly 40% of its business evaporate. The board had accepted Harvey's resignation, effective immediately. I handed the tablet back without comment. "You don't seem surprised," Daniel noted. "Hard to build relationships on spreadsheets," I replied. That afternoon, I received a LinkedIn message from Philip, Regent's CFO. "The board is meeting tomorrow to discuss recovery strategies. Your name came up. Would you consider a conversation?" I didn't respond. Instead, I finalized our quarterly presentation for the Sterling Group. Our team had delivered their new corporate uniforms 2 weeks early, and the feedback had been overwhelmingly positive. Georgina had already introduced us to 2 other potential clients in their network. The next day, Gerald Davies called. "Thought you'd want to know, Morgan. The Blackwood Group is trying to sell off Regent. The stock's down 22% since you left." "Who's buying?" "That's the thing, no takers yet. Word is they're trying to reach out to you through back channels. The board thinks you're the only one who can stabilize the client relationships." I thanked Gerald for the information and went back to work. Later, I took my team out for lunch to celebrate our first 2 quarters of consecutive growth. Sam showed sketches for a new product line. Bethany shared updates on client feedback. We discussed Highland Outfitters' expansion plans. No one mentioned Regent. That evening, I received a direct email from Margaret Hastings, Regent's board chair. "Morgan, the situation has become untenable. We made a grave error in judgment. Would you consider returning as CEO? Complete autonomy, significant equity stake, board seat. Name your terms." I closed my laptop without replying. The next morning, I called a meeting with my team at Highland Outfitters. "I have been approached about returning to Regent," I said plainly. "I wanted you all to hear it from me first." "And," Sam prompted, a hopeful glint in his eye. "I'm declining the offer." Sam nodded. "Figured they'd try eventually." Bethany smiled. "Too little, too late." "Exactly," I said. "We're building something better here." That afternoon, I sent a brief email to Margaret. "I appreciate the offer, but I must decline. I'm committed to my current position. I wish Regent the best going forward." 3 days later, the news broke. Highland Outfitters had acquired Regent Apparel's Northern Division in a strategic asset purchase. The press release highlighted the move as reuniting key talent with established client relationships. Daniel had negotiated the deal quietly, paying pennies on the pound for what had once been Regent's crown jewel. The board had no choice. It was either sell to us or watch it collapse entirely. I never had to strike back directly. The market did it for me. 1 year after my termination from Regent, I drove past their former Northern Division office. The Highland Outfitters logo now hung proudly where the Regent sign had once been. The building looked the same, but everything inside had changed. We'd rehired some of the staff who'd been let go during Harvey's brief, disastrous tenure. We'd recovered 3 more client relationships that had deteriorated after my departure. The division now generated more revenue under Highland Outfitters than it ever had under Regent. I parked across the street and watched employees leaving for the day, familiar faces mixed with new ones. They looked happy, engaged, purposeful. When I got home, Harriet was in the kitchen making dinner. "I drove by the old office today," I told her. She studied my expression. Nostalgia or closure? "Closure, I think," I replied. "Did you know it's been exactly 1 year?" She nodded. I remembered. "That's why I made your favorite tonight." Over dinner, Millie called from Edinburgh to share news about a major project her architecture firm had landed. "How's the new job going, Dad?" she asked. "Good," I replied. "Building something that will last." The same words I'd used for 17 years at Regent, but this time I knew it was true. Later that evening, I received a text from Gerald Davies. "Regent's remaining divisions just got acquired by Viridian Group. Clean sweep. Nothing left of the original company." I set my phone down and walked out to the deck. The spring air was warm, filled with possibility. I thought about Harvey, wondered briefly what he was doing now. I hoped he'd learned something, though I doubted it. I thought about all those years building bridges for a company that didn't value them, the late nights, missed family dinners, postponed vacations. The sacrifices had been real, but so were the relationships I'd built. In the end, those relationships had followed me, not because I'd asked them to, but because we'd built something authentic together. No spreadsheet could capture that value. No restructuring could erase it. The next morning, I arrived at Highland Outfitters early. I reviewed our quarterly projections, now 30% above target. I checked our client retention numbers, 97%, the highest in company history. Daniel stopped by my office. "Board approved your proposal," he said. "Employee ownership program starts next quarter. Sam and Bethany will head up the implementation team." I nodded. "They'll do it right." "You know, Morgan," Daniel said, leaning against the doorframe, "when all this started, I thought we were just getting a talented executive and some lucrative client relationships. I didn't realize we were getting a completely different way of doing business." "Relationships over transactions," I replied. "Always." After he left, I opened my desk drawer and removed the golfing trophy Windsor Properties had given me years ago. I placed it on my shelf next to new photos of my team at Highland Outfitters. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need vindication. I just needed to build something that would last. This time, I had